Hello students, today is the last class of surface chemistry. Today we are going to discuss purification, different methods for purification of colloidal solutions. Purification is the process of reducing the amount of impurities to a requisite minimum. That is purification. Here purification doesn't mean that removal of all the impurities. Here purification means the process of reducing the amount of impurities to the required extent minimum, to the required minimum extent is known as purification of colloidal solution. There are different methods for purification. Number one is dialysis, which is very much important for our examination. And each one of us is well acquainted with this word dialysis. The definition is the process of removing a dissolved substance from a colloidal solution by means of diffusion through a suitable membrane is known as dialysis. The membrane we have already learnt in osmosis. Here in solution chapter. So removal of dissolved substance from a colloidal solution by means of diffusion through a suitable membrane is known as dialysis. Colloidal particles cannot pass through this membrane, that is animal membrane, bladder or parchment paper or cellophane sheet, but ions or smaller molecules of a solution can pass. The apparatus used for this method is called dialyzer, which is clear from the diagram given shown already in the page. Now the next method is electrodialysis. When the same dialysis is done with the help of electricity to rapid up the process, then it is known as electrodialysis. Or when the dialysis is made faster by applying an electric field, if the dissolved substance in the impure colloidal solution is only an electrolyte, then it is called electrodialysis. So in the above figure, the only change we have to do, electrodes are to be shown in the same diagram. Now the third process is ultrafiltration. Another method of reducing impurities from a colloidal solution. The process of removing or separating the colloidal particles from the solvent and soluble solutes present in the colloidal solution by a specially prepared filters which are permeable to all substances except the colloidal particles is called ultrafiltration. Colloid ion. The pores of filter paper can be reduced in size by impregnating with a solution of ions to stop the flow of colloidal particles. The solution of ions is known as colloid ion solution. Example, 4% solution of nitrocellulose in a mixture of alcohol and ether. 4% solution of nitrocellulose in a mixture of alcohol and ether. Now the next topic is properties of colloidal solutions. Number one is colligative properties. Colloids are aggregates, a form of a large number of atoms or smaller molecules. However, the number of particles in a colloidal solution is comparatively small as compared to a true solution. Hence, colligative properties are of small order as compared to values shown by true solution at same concentration. The next property, which is highly important for our board examination, that is Tyndall effect. Even in lower class, we have learned about Tyndall effect in detail. The very simple definition is the scattering of light. When a beam of light is allowed to pass through a solution and the path of the light or beam is shown to us, is clear to us, is visible to us, then it is called Tyndall effect. Again, I repeat, the scattering of light illuminating the path of beam in the colloidal dispersion is called Tyndall effect. This effect is used to distinguish between a colloidal and true solution. In true solution, the size of solute particle is too small to scatter the light. And because of that, we won't be able to see the path of the beam. Whereas in colloidal solution, the size of particles or solute dissolved is comparatively larger, and because of that, they scatter light or incident light to illuminate their path, propagating path. So this is the best way to distinguish between a true solution and colloidal. And the diagram is given in NCERT. From there you can learn how to sketch the diagram. Now, conditions for Tyndall effect. Number one, the diameter of dispersed particles should not be less than the wavelength of light used. Number two, that is the second condition, the refractive indices of dispersed phase and dispersion medium should be largely different. Only then Tyndall effect can be made clear. Now the next property is color. It depends on the wavelength of the light scattered by the dispersed particle. The wavelength further depends on the size and nature of the colloidal particles present. The color of colloidal solution also depends upon the manner by which the observer receives the scattered light. Example, a mixture of milk and water appears blue when viewed by the reflected light and red when viewed by transmitted light. Now the next property is Brownian movement. Robert Brown was a renowned botanist who discovered this phenomena related with colloidal solution. A state of continuous zigzag motion of colloidal particles in all over the field of view is called Brownian movement, which is clear from the diagram shown in the left hand side margin. Zigzag motion, that is Brownian movement. So Brownian movement is independent of the nature of the colloid, but depends on the size of the particles and viscosity of the solution. The smaller is the size, lesser is the viscosity, and hence faster is the motion. Now let us try to understand cause of Brownian movement. It arises because of the impact of molecules of the dispersion medium with the colloidal particles, where they keep on colliding continuously. These impacts are unequal, which ultimately cause zigzag motion. However, as the size of the particles increase, the probability of unequal impact decreases, and hence Brownian movement also decreases. So ultimately, when the size of dispersed particle becomes bigger enough, no Brownian movement is observed. Now, significances of Brownian movement. Number one, it provides a direct demonstration of ceaseless motion of molecules. The second significance, it counters the force of gravity acting on colloidal particles and hence helps in providing stability to the colloidal solution. Means their particles do not settle down because of continuous Brownian movement. Now the next point is charge on colloidal particles. This is again very much important for your examination. Colloidal particles always carry an electric charge. This charge is of the same type on all the particles in a given colloidal solution and may be either positive or negative. Example, positively charged colloidal solutions. Metallic hydroxides like chromium hydroxide, aluminum hydroxide, iron hydroxide, etc. Another examples are titanium oxide, proteins in acidic medium, basic dye stuffs like methylene blue solution. Now next is negatively charged colloidal solution. Metals like copper, silver, gold, etc. salts. Metallic sulfides like As2S3, Sb2S3, CdS salts. Acid dyestuffs like eosin, Congo red salts. Salts of starch, gum, gelatin, clay, charcoal, etc. The charge on salts particles is due to one or more reasons. Number one, due to electron capture by salt particles during electrodispersion of metals. Number two, due to preferential adsorption of ions from solution. Number three, due to formulation of electrical double layer. The second one, charge reason is highly important. That is preferential adsorption of ions. So this is the most accepted view where we see the salt particles acquire positive or negative charge by preferential adsorption of positive or negative ions. When two or more ions are present in the dispersion medium, preferential adsorption of ion common to the colloidal particles usually takes place. Example, silver nitrate solution is added to potassium iodide solution. The precipitate obtained is AgI, that is silver iodide, which will adsorb iodide ions which are common from the dispersion medium, and a negatively charged colloidal solution will result. Silver iodide / I minus, that is negatively charged solution we obtain. However, when potassium iodide solution is added to silver nitrate solution, positively charged Sol will result due to adsorption of Ag plus ion from dispersion medium. The second example is if FeCl3 is added to excess of hot water, a positively charged Sol of FeOH thrice is obtained due to adsorption of Fe3 plus ion. FeOH whole thrice slash Fe3 plus or Fe2O3 dot XH2O slash Fe3 plus. However, when FeCl3 is added to NaOH, a negatively charged Sol is obtained with adsorption of OH minus ion. FeOH whole thrice slash OH minus or Fe2O3 dot XH2O slash Fe3O3 plus. The presence of equal and similar charges on colloidal particles is largely responsible in providing stability to the colloidal solution because the forces of repulsion existing between the same charged particles is preventing them from aggregating when they come closer to one another. Now again important part for our board examination of this topic, that is preferential adsorption of ion. The topic is electrokinetic potential or zeta potential. So definition of 1 mark or 2 mark is given in our board examination. The potential difference between fixed and diffused layer is called zeta potential. Here in that diagram, the fixed layer is AgI surrounded by metal cation, that is Ag plus ion, which are ultimately interacted with negatively charged ion, that is NO3 minus, which are forming diffused layer. So it is clear, very much clear from the diagram, there are two types of layer. Inside the seated, deeply seated layer is fixed layer and the outer layer is the diffused layer. So potential difference between this fixed and diffused layer is known as zeta potential. Fixed layer is the adsorbed ion on the surface of colloidal particles form a fixed layer. Diffused layer, the adsorbed ions attract oppositely charged ions to form mobile or diffused layer. Now the next topic is Helmholtz electrical double layer. The combination of these two layers of opposite charges around the colloidal particle is known as Helmholtz electrical double layer. Now the next topic is electrophoresis. The movement of colloidal particles either towards the cathode or anode under the influence of electrical field is called electrophoresis. Example, arsenious sulfide, gold, silver and platinum particles and their respective colloidal soles are negatively charged, whereas ferric hydroxide, aluminum hydroxide, etc. are positively charged sole. Electroosmosis. When the movement of the particles is prevented by some suitable means, it is observed that the dispersion medium begins to move in an electric field. This phenomenon is known as electroosmosis. In electroosmosis, movement of the dispersed particle is not allowed. It is prevented already by using some suitable means, but on the other hand, dispersion medium begins to move under the same electrical field, only then it is known as electroosmosis. Now next topic, coagulation or precipitation or flocculation. The definition is the process of settling of colloidal particles is called coagulation. There are different ways to cause coagulation of the lyophobic sol. Number one is electrophoresis, where charged particles get discharged and hence precipitated. And this happens only under the influence of electrical field. The second way is by mixing two oppositely charged sols. When the equal proportion of two oppositely charged sols are mixed, then they result in neutralization and hence precipitated ultimately. Example is mixing of hydrated ferric oxide, that is positively charged sol, and arsenious sulfide, negatively charged sol. When we mix these two, they cause precipitation. This is called mutual coagulation. Third is by boiling. On boiling, the adsorbed layer is disturbed due to increased collisions with the molecules of dispersion medium. This reduces the charge on the particles, which ultimately lead to settling down in the form of precipitate. The next way is by persistent dialysis. The stability of colloidal sols is due to the presence of a small amount of electrolyte. If the electrolyte is completely removed by repeated dialysis, the sol will get coagulated. Now the next way is, that is highly important again for our board examination, by addition of electrolytes. The precipitation of ions carrying charge opposite to that present on the ions of the electrolyte added is neutralization, which results into coagulation. Coagulating ion. The ion responsible for neutralization of charge on the particle is called the coagulating ions. Now, coagulation value or flocculation value. The minimum concentration of the electrolyte in millimoles that must be added to 1 liter of the sol to bring about complete coagulation in 2 hours. It is called coagulation value or flocculation value of the electrolyte for the sol. Or in brief, we can define coagulation value as the minimum concentration of an electrolyte required in millimoles per liter to cause precipitation of a sol in 2 hours is called coagulating value. So smaller the quantity needed, higher will be the coagulating power. Hardy-Schulze rule. The related rule given by Hardy-Schulze, because of that it is known as Hardy-Schulze rule. Greater is the valency of the flocculating ions added, higher is the power to cause precipitation. This is known as Hardy-Schulze rule. Coagulation power is directly proportional to the force power of the valency of the active ions. So in the coagulation of a negative sol, the flocculating power of Na plus, barium 2 plus and aluminum 3 plus ions is in the order aluminum 3 plus greater than barium 2 plus, greater than sodium 1 plus. So aluminum ion has higher valencies, so it causes more precipitation. Similarly, in the coagulation of positive ions, the order is FeCN whole 6 4 minus greater than PO4 3 minus greater than SO4 2 minus greater than Cl 1 minus. So one important question is here, what modification can you suggest in Hardy-Schulze rule? Greater is the valency of an ion, the stronger is its power to coagulate colloidal solution. The suggestion will be here, not only the valency of an ion, but also the concentration of ion should be considered. Now the next topic is coagulation of lyophilic salts. This is done by adding electrolyte or by adding a suitable solvent. Example, when solvents such as alcohol and acetone are added to hydrophilic salts, the dehydration of dispersed phase occurs. Under this condition, a small quantity of electrolyte can bring about coagulation. The protection of colloid is the next topic. Lyophilic salts are more stable than lyophobic due to the fact that lyophilic colloids are extensively solvated. That is, colloidal particles are covered by a seed of the liquid in which they are dispersed. Lyophilic colloids have unique property of protecting lyophobic colloids. So when a lyophilic sol is added to the lyophobic sol, the lyophilic particles form a layer around lyophobic particles, and this protects the layer from electrolytes. Lyophilic colloids used for this purpose are called protective colloids. The protective power is measured in gold number, introduced by another scientist, Zsigmondy. This is not in our syllabus, but I have included only definition. The number of milligrams of lyophilic colloid that will just prevent the precipitation of 10 ml of a gold solution sol on the addition of 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride solution. Higher is the gold number, lower will be the protective power. Example, gelatin, higher the protective power, that is maximum protective power. Starch, the minimum protective power. Again, we are going to start one more important topic, that is the last topic of this chapter, emulsion, liquid-liquid colloidal system. If a mixture of two immiscible or partially miscible liquids is shaken, a coarse dispersion of one liquid in the other is obtained, which is called emulsion. It is two types. Number one, oil dispersed in water, that is OW type, where water acts as a dispersion medium. Example is milk and vanishing cream, in which liquid fat is dispersed in water. So example is very much important because it is usually asked in the examination for 1 mark question. So OW type emulsions are unstable and sometimes they separate into two layers on standing. So for the stabilization of an emulsion, a third component called emulsifying agent is usually added. the emulsifying agents form an interfacial film between suspended particles and the medium. Example, proteins, gums, natural and synthetic soaps, etc. The second type is water dispersed in oil, WO type. Here water acts as a dispersed phase and oil acts as dispersion medium. Example is cold cream, butter, cod liver oil, etc. Here heavy metal salts of fatty acids, long chain alcohols, lamp black, etc. are emulsifying agents of WO type emulsions. These two type emulsions can be interconverted simply by changing the proportion of the dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Example, OW type emulsion can be converted into WO type by adding excess of oil to OW type emulsion. So emulsions can be diluted with any amount of the dispersion medium. On the other hand, the dispersed liquid, when mixed, forms a separate layer. The droplets of emulsions are often negatively charged and can be precipitated by electrolytes. They also show Brownian movement and Tyndall effect. Demulsification. The decomposition of an emulsion into constituent liquid is called demulsification. So dear student, this is all about your surface chemistry. I believe that you could understand all the points discussed. And my suggestion, many questions are there given in exercise. Keep on doing them from question number 15 to 27. So this is homework given to you. Thank you.